In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I go through and polish a model for release to someone else. So what I'm looking for here is I want to remove any unused power queries, any unused columns, and any unused measures in order to make my model as lean and mean and efficient as possible. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Monkey Tools Model Sleuth and I'm going to run the Unused Items report, which has an advantage over some of the other reports that I've actually demoed in other videos, in that this also identifies power queries that aren't being used. And you can see that it's gone through and it's analyzed the power queries and power pivot model, and it's come back and told me I have one query that's not being used, 11 columns, all of which are naturally occurring from the data set. None of them are calculated columns. And we have two measures, an explicit and an implicit measure. So let's walk through the process of trying to figure out how we can go through and make this work. The first step in that process is going to be opening up our Power Query window and getting rid of our natural columns here. So if I take a look, I'm just going to start with the calendar table here. So I'm just going to pop this one open. And one of the things that I will say drives me crazy is that Power Query changes the page that I am looking at before it actually launches in there. It would be really handy if the Power Query editor could actually open and say, hey, guess what? I'm gonna stay in the same spot so that I could see the list that I'd actually created. Super frustrating. But regardless, it doesn't, so it's always handy to make some notes of which columns you're actually gonna go after when you're looking through this. Now we do need our Power Query preview here to refresh. Mine is coming from a SQL database here, so this is going to take a minute. So I'm just going to fast forward this until this part completes. All right, there we are. And now what I'm basically going to do is on my calendar table, I'm going to go to Choose Columns. And from the Choose Columns list that comes up, I'm going to uncheck the ones that I don't need. So I don't need day of month, I don't need day short, and I don't need quarter. None of those are being used in the data model. So I can say OK, and that will add a new removed other column step, which will remove those from this particular table. I'm now going to hop over to the items table, and inside the items table, it looks like I wasn't actually using the item name for whatever reason. Rather than just delete it, I'm going to go again to choose columns, and I'm going to uncheck it here, and that way I'm going to get the new step with the gear icon. So if I do need to bring that back in future, it's easy to do. My next table is the locations table. I'm going to go to choose columns once again in this one here, and the columns that I don't need from the list I had before were address, city, country, we had lat and long we weren't using, and province. None of those ones, just the location ID and location as it turns out. So we'll say OK to that. And finally, on the shifts table here, I wasn't using shift name, so again we'll go choose columns and we'll uncheck our shift name. We'll say OK at this point, and now I'm just going to go and hit close and load to load all of this information to the data model. So it's now going to go through the process of refreshing all of this data and getting the up-to-date versions into the data model without those extra columns that I wasn't using. All right, with that done, let's go and take a look at our unused items report. And why don't we just rerun this and make sure that those columns are actually gone and that there's no new ones that have come up. So we'll go back to our model sleuth, our unused items report. We'll run that again, and sure as anything, it looks like we had a couple of other ones. Day of week is no longer being used here, and the shift sort is also no longer being used. So these were part of the sorting hierarchy that were being used to sort fields that no longer exist, so they're no longer needed. So we can now go back if we want to and get rid of those ones as well. Now I'm going to make that change really quickly here. I won't make you wait while I'm doing it, but bear with me, and we're going to get rid of those ones altogether as well. All right, let's run another and see what we get this time around. So back to our unused items report, we run it again, and it looks like this time here we have no columns left undone. So it can take a few iterations with this in order to go through and actually nail them all down, because we don't actually look down through the full dependency chain to figure it out. So run a couple just to make sure you've got a clean bill of health. You'll notice the next one, we have one query that's not being used. So if we scroll down to the bottom of the list, we can see it is the query staging detail here. So if we go and we take a look, here is the staging sales details query here, making sure that's the same name. That looks good. We can just right click and delete this one. And at this point in time, this will go away. Once again, we run our unused items report, and boom, there we go. Oh, it doesn't look like it's actually picked that up yet. That's unfortunate. If that happens for any reason, and Monkey Tools is supposed to be smart enough to actually pick this up, the challenge is that we actually watch for data model changes. We don't necessarily get an event to watch for Power Query changes. So if you see something like this where you're just working on Power Queries, just go back to your connection monkey and choose to reload the current model and then run the report again for unused items. And this time it should recognize that there are no queries that are actually need to be counted into this as well. So columns are clear, our queries are clear. We're now dealing with measures. Now the thing here is that we have two types of measures, an explicit and an implicit, and these things look different. And here's why. When we go and take a look at our sales month-to-date units, notice this is stored on the sales table. Our implicit measure is stored on the calendar table. So we're going to start with sales. We'll go look for that explicit measure. So I'm just going to open up our data model. And I'm going to click on the sales table. And what you'll notice is that down in the calculation area, and by the way, if you don't have this, you can click on the calculation area to hide it here or show it again. If you hide it and show it again, it gives you all the measures, or if you click away to a table and come back, it will give you a listing of all the measures. For whatever reason, the first time you go to a table, it doesn't show you everything, which is kind of frustrating. Now, if we take a look at this, I can make this a little bit bigger, make this a little bit wider. Here is our month-to-date units prior month. Once I've discovered it, I can just press the delete key to delete it from the model. That one's easy. But what about calendar? Now when you come here, you can see there's no measures listed. If I click on shifts and go back, no measures listed. Calculation area again, no measures listed. Where is it? I mean, we added it to a table and we removed it, but it's not there. So to find implicit measures, you have to go to Advanced and click on Show Implicit Measures. And then it will come back and actually display it for you. So there's sum of month, plainly something we don't want to use. In addition, when you go to click deleting, it will tell you that it is currently used in a pivot table. This is not true. I've already analyzed it and I know. So this is now giving you a false positive to keep your implicit measure around. What this should have said is this was used in a pivot table, but is no longer. So what we're going to do is we're going to permanently delete this from the model, make it go away, and now we can go close this window. We can go back, rerun our unused items report, and at this point we should get a nice clean bill of health for our model. So we should also now be able to go back and run a memory usage report and see that everything is in use with no unused columns at all. And this is what actually leads us to getting into a nice healthy data model without extra weight being carried for any reason. So there you go. That is the tool sets that I would use to go and clean up a model to make sure that it's nice and lean and efficient before I go and release it to a client using the tools that we have baked into Monkey Tools. Thanks for watching this episode of Using Monkey Tools. To get your own monkey, visit our website at monkeytools.ca. Or if you subscribe to Skillwave's Self-Service Business Intelligence Academy, you'll get a free annual pro license included with your subscription. And remember, Monkey Tools was developed to support better Excel and Power BI solutions. If you want to learn how to really master these tools, you should definitely check out our full course catalog at skillwave.training.